What's wrong with chasing a problem-free life? Have you ever wondered why no matter what you do, life always seems to throw another problem your way? No matter how much effort you put into controlling your life, whether it's managing work stress, family issues, or just the daily grind, problems seem to multiply. And here's the thing. What if I told you the real challenge isn't solving every problem but changing how you view them? Let me share with you a life-changing perspective inspired by a Buddhist parable. The 84th problem, which holds the key to finding peace amidst the chaos. Chapter 1. The 84th problem. Accept it or keep running away. We often think that happiness means a life without problems. We seek perfection, hoping that everything will go smoothly, without obstacles or suffering. But Buddhism teaches us that this very desire is the root of our suffering. There is a famous story about a farmer who approached the Buddha and complained about his life. "I have too many problems, family, work, health, I am always worried." The Buddha replied, "Everyone has 83 problems in life, and these problems are unavoidable. But what truly makes you suffer is the 84th problem, the fact that you don't want to have any problems at all." Embracing imperfection. When we understand this, we realize that difficulties are not something we can completely eliminate. Even if we solve one problem, another will arise. This is the nature of life. The difference between a happy person and a suffering person is not the number of problems they face but how they respond to them. We can choose to react in two ways. 1. Resist and complain. This only increases suffering. When we try to eliminate all problems, we are chasing an illusion that can never be achieved. 2. Accept and face them. When we understand that struggles are an inevitable part of life, we can find peace even in the midst of challenges. Letting go of resistance. Resistance to reality is the root cause of suffering. When things don't go as planned, we feel frustrated, disappointed, or angry. But the nature of all things is impermanence. They arise, exist, and then fade away. For example, when a person loses their job, they can either drown in anger and resentment or accept the situation and see it as an opportunity to find a new path. Losing a job doesn't inherently cause suffering. It is our refusal to accept reality that creates pain. Freedom lies in perception. One of the most important teachings of Buddhism is, there is no path to happiness, happiness is the path. Happiness is not a destination we reach when all problems disappear, it is the way we move through life's challenges. Observe the people around you. Some have everything they need yet still suffer, while others face adversity but remain peaceful. The difference lies in how they perceive and accept what is happening. Lessons from the enlightened ones. Throughout history, enlightened beings and meditation masters did not live problem-free lives. They also faced hardships, illness, and loss, but instead of resisting, they chose to live in harmony with whatever arose, without attachment, without escape. A Zen master once said, "Imagine you are wading through a river. If you resist the current, you will tire and sink, but if you relax, you will float with the flow and eventually reach the other side." Life is like a flowing river. If we keep resisting, we will suffer, but if we accept and adapt, we will find peace even amidst challenges. Chapter 2. The Parable of the Farmer, a Lesson in Acceptance. The farmer's story is not just about him, it is about all of us. In life, we all experience difficulties, financial struggles, conflicts in relationships, health issues, or the unpredictability of circumstances. We are often caught in a cycle of wishing things were different, hoping that someday, all our problems will be resolved. But what if the secret to peace is not solving every problem but changing how we relate to them? The Farmer's Dilemma, the illusion of a problem-free life. The farmer was convinced that his suffering came from his problems, his failing crops, his family disputes, and his lack of community support. He believed that if only these problems disappeared, he would finally be happy. This mindset is something we all fall into at times. If I had more money, I wouldn't be stressed. If my partner understood me better, I wouldn't be unhappy. If I could just get rid of these problems, my life would be perfect. The farmer sought the Buddha's help not just for guidance but for an escape. He wanted a life without difficulties, believing that peace could only come when everything was under control. But the Buddha's response shattered that illusion. You will always have 83 problems. Some will resolve, and new ones will arise. The real problem, the 84th problem, is that you want to have none at all. Resistance versus acceptance, the source of our suffering. What makes a problem painful is not the problem itself but our resistance to it. Imagine standing in the ocean, fighting against the waves, trying to push the water away. The harder you fight, the more exhausted you become. But if you surrender and float with the waves, you realize they are not obstacles, they are just part of the ocean's nature. Life's problems are like the waves. We can't stop them from coming, but we can change how we meet them. When we resist reality, we suffer. When we accept reality, we find peace. The farmer believed that happiness was the absence of struggle. But real peace comes from embracing the natural ebb and flow of life, its ups and downs, its joys and sorrows. How the mind creates suffering. The Buddha's teaching is deeply rooted in the nature of the mind. Our thoughts create narratives around problems, making them seem larger than they are. We relive past mistakes, anticipate future troubles, and compare our lives to an imagined ideal. Consider this. Two people can face the same external problem but experience it very differently. A person stuck in traffic may become frustrated, seeing it as an obstacle to their plans. Another person in the same traffic may use the time to listen to music, breathe, and simply be present. The traffic remains the same, but the experience is completely different. This is the power of perception. The farmer, like all of us, was trapped in the belief that problems must be eliminated to find peace. But peace is not something to be found, it is something to be cultivated through acceptance. Beyond acceptance, living with wisdom and equanimity. Acceptance does not mean passivity. It does not mean giving up on improving our lives. Instead, it means responding to challenges with wisdom rather than resistance. 1. Understanding impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. Problems arise, but they also fade. When we deeply understand this truth, we stop reacting with fear and clinging. The farmer's failing crops were not permanent, neither were his family's conflicts. By embracing impermanence, we loosen our grip on suffering. 2. Shifting our perspective. What if problems were not obstacles but opportunities? Difficulties force us to grow, to develop resilience, to deepen our understanding of ourselves and others. The farmer's struggles could have been seen as burdens or as lessons in patience, resourcefulness, and compassion. 3. Practicing mindfulness. Instead of being consumed by problems, we can observe them with awareness. When we recognize that suffering is often created by our minds rather than the situation itself, we can choose a different response. The final realization. The end of the 84th problem. The farmer's breakthrough came when he let go of the belief that life should be problem-free. He realized that struggles are part of existence, just like the sun and the rain, joy and sorrow. His peace did not come from eliminating his problems, it came from no longer being enslaved by his resistance to them. When we release the 84th problem, the craving for a perfect life, we stop wasting energy on an impossible pursuit. Instead, we learn to dance with life's uncertainties, to navigate challenges with a light heart, and to find serenity in the middle of the storm. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. Suffering is not in the experience but in the resistance to the experience. The choice is always ours. Will we keep struggling against life, or will we finally let go? Chapter 3. Life's inevitable problems and how to embrace them. Life is inherently imperfect. We live in a world full of change, where things are constantly in flux. Relationships evolve, health fluctuates, and circumstances shift. These natural changes are what the Buddha refers to as the 83 problems. The 84th problem, however, arises from our yearning for a perfect, problem-free existence. This expectation creates unnecessary suffering, as we attempt to control and resist what is beyond our control. Why do we struggle against reality? At its core, the human mind is conditioned to seek stability and certainty. We want comfort, predictability, and control over our circumstances. When life does not conform to our expectations, we experience frustration, disappointment, and even suffering. But the reality is, impermanence is the natural state of existence. We resist aging, trying to hold on to youth and vitality. Yet time moves forward regardless. We resist change in relationships, wanting people to remain the same. Yet they grow, evolve, and sometimes move away. We resist loss, struggling to accept the inevitable cycle of life and death. This resistance does not change reality, it only deepens our suffering. The Buddha taught that suffering does not come from external conditions themselves, but from our attachment to how we think things should be. Mindfulness, a path to acceptance. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, observing life as it unfolds without judgment or resistance. Instead of clinging to what we wish were true, mindfulness helps us embrace what is. Consider this simple scenario. You are stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. The instinctive reaction is irritation, thought spiral. Why does this always happen to me? Why can't the traffic clear up? I should have left earlier. This mental struggle intensifies your stress, even though the situation itself has not changed. Now imagine applying mindfulness in the same scenario. You take a deep breath, acknowledge the traffic without judgment, and accept that you cannot control it. Instead of fighting the reality, you choose to relax, perhaps listening to calming music or simply observing your surroundings. The traffic remains the same, but your experience is completely different. Mindfulness does not remove life's challenges, but it changes how we experience them. Letting go of the 84th problem. The real problem, the 84th problem, is our resistance to problems. We want life to be smooth, effortless, and free of difficulties. But just as the ocean has waves, life will always bring ups and downs. The key is not to fight the waves, but to learn how to surf. A common misunderstanding is that acceptance means passivity. However, acceptance does not mean giving up. It means responding wisely rather than reacting emotionally. When we let go of resistance, we see problems as part of life, not as obstacles to happiness. We develop resilience, learning to navigate difficulties with patience and grace. We free ourselves from unnecessary suffering, as we no longer waste energy wishing for an impossible reality. Reframing problems as growth opportunities. Every challenge carries a hidden lesson. Instead of viewing problems as burdens, we can see them as teachers guiding us toward greater wisdom and understanding. A difficult boss teaches patience and communication skills. Financial struggles cultivate resourcefulness and gratitude. Relationship conflicts reveal personal triggers and emotional maturity. If we shift our mindset, problems transform from sources of frustration into opportunities for self-discovery. The Buddha himself faced countless challenges, yet he did not see them as obstacles. He saw them as part of the path. The power of equanimity. Beyond mindfulness, another essential Buddhist principle is equanimity, a deep, unshakable peace that remains undisturbed by external circumstances. Imagine a mountain. Storms may rage, winds may howl, yet the mountain remains steadfast. Equanimity is the ability to remain centered regardless of what is happening around us. It does not mean we do not feel emotions, it means we do not let emotions control us. This state of inner balance allows us to respond to difficulties with clarity instead of panic. Accept both joy and sorrow without attachment. Navigate life's ups and downs with a sense of stability. When we cultivate equanimity, we become like the mountain, grounded, resilient, and at peace no matter what life brings. Final realization. True freedom lies in acceptance. Suffering is not in the external events of life, but in how we respond to them. When we let go of the belief that life should be free of problems, we discover a deeper peace, one that is not dependent on circumstances but on our inner state of being. Problems will come and go, just as the waves rise and fall. The choice is ours. Will we fight against them, or will we learn to embrace them with an open heart? Chapter 4. Buddha's Wisdom: Pain versus Suffering. One of the most profound teachings of Buddhism is the distinction between pain and suffering. Pain is an unavoidable part of life, whether it's dealing with a difficult coworker, losing a loved one, or facing financial struggles. But suffering is different. It is not caused by the pain itself but by how we react to it. Imagine two people experiencing the same difficult situation. One feels deep anguish, anger, and frustration, while the other remains calm and accepting. The difference? Their mindset. Pain may be universal, but suffering is optional. The 84th problem: the root of suffering. In Buddhist philosophy, we often hear about the 83 problems, the unavoidable difficulties of life. Some problems can be solved, while others are beyond our control. But the true cause of suffering is the 84th problem: our refusal to accept that problems exist. We wish for a life without setbacks. We resist discomfort and chase after pleasure. We cling to an illusion of control over things we cannot change. This resistance creates suffering. When we desire a life free from pain, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. True peace comes not from eliminating problems but from letting go of our attachment to a problem-free existence. Why resistance causes suffering? The mind naturally avoids discomfort, seeking pleasure and stability. But life is impermanent, everything changes. And clinging to what we wish were true only deepens our suffering. Take the example of losing a loved one. The pain of loss is real and unavoidable. But suffering comes from thoughts like, "This shouldn't have happened. I can't live without them. Why do bad things always happen to me?" These thoughts create a secondary layer of suffering that is self-imposed. Instead of allowing ourselves to experience grief naturally, we add resistance and mental struggle, making the pain even harder to bear. The same applies to daily frustrations: a rude coworker, a delayed flight, a failed project. The situation itself is neutral. Our suffering arises when we react with frustration, anger, or a desire for things to be different. How to transform pain into acceptance? If suffering comes from resistance, then the solution is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean giving up or being passive. It means acknowledging reality as it is, without unnecessary struggle. Here's how we can shift our mindset. 1. Observe pain without judgment. When pain arises, instead of immediately resisting it, simply notice it. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Recognize the sensation without labeling it as bad or wrong. 2. Let go of the illusion of control. Many things in life are beyond our control: aging, loss, external circumstances. Trying to control the uncontrollable is like trying to stop the waves in the ocean. Instead, we can learn to ride the waves with grace. 3. Reframe the experience. Every painful situation carries a lesson. A difficult coworker teaches patience. Financial struggles teach resilience. Instead of seeing pain as an enemy, we can view it as a teacher. 4. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us stay present with pain without adding suffering. If you are stuck in traffic, instead of thinking, "This is terrible, I hate this," you can simply notice, "I am sitting in traffic. The sky is blue. The air is warm." Shifting perspective reduces unnecessary mental distress. 5. Cultivate equanimity. Equanimity is the ability to remain steady in both pleasure and pain. It is the inner wisdom that recognizes, "This too shall pass." Whether joy or sorrow, everything is temporary. When we develop equanimity, we stop being tossed around by life's ups and downs. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Buddhism does not promise a life free of pain. Instead, it offers freedom from suffering by teaching us how to accept pain without resistance. The 84th problem, the belief that we should never experience hardship, keeps us trapped in suffering. But once we let go of this illusion, we find true peace, not in a life without pain, but in a mind that no longer fears it. Chapter 5. Practical steps to let go of the 84th problem. Now that we understand the essence of the 84th problem, how do we let go of it and apply its wisdom to our lives? Understanding this concept intellectually is one thing, but practicing it daily is what truly leads to inner peace. The following steps provide practical ways to shift your perspective and embrace life with a more open heart. 1. Embrace life's challenges instead of resisting them. The first step to letting go of the 84th problem is accepting that problems are an inevitable part of life. We often react to difficulties with frustration, asking, "Why is this happening to me?" But what if we flipped that mindset? What if, instead, we acknowledge that challenges are not personal, they are simply part of the human experience? Every day brings new uncertainties. From small inconveniences like a traffic jam to major life challenges such as illness or financial struggles. Instead of seeing these as disruptions to an ideal life, recognize them as just another part of your 83 problems, things that come and go, independent of your will. By accepting that problems are natural and unavoidable, we stop resisting them. The energy we once wasted on frustration can now be used to navigate these difficulties with wisdom and calmness. 2. Let go of the illusion of control. Much of our suffering comes from the desire to control everything, our future, other people's behavior, outcomes of situations. The truth is, control is an illusion. Life moves in unpredictable ways, and no amount of planning can guarantee a problem-free existence. Letting go of control doesn't mean becoming passive. It means recognizing that we can control our actions, but not the results. A farmer can plant seeds and tend to his crops, but he cannot control the weather. A student can study diligently, but they cannot control the exact exam questions. By surrendering to the flow of life and focusing on effort rather than outcome, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Ask yourself, am I holding on to something that is beyond my control? If the answer is yes, practice releasing it with a deep breath and remind yourself, this, too, is just one of the 83 problems. 3. Approach relationships with compassion, not expectation. Human relationships are one of the biggest sources of emotional suffering. We expect people to understand us, to treat us fairly, to act according to our desires. But just as we have our own struggles, so do others. When we shift our focus from expectation to compassion, relationships become lighter and more harmonious. Instead of taking misunderstandings personally, remind yourself that the other person, too, has their own 83 problems. If someone is rude, instead of reacting with anger, consider, perhaps they are going through something difficult. If a loved one disappoints you, instead of holding on to resentment, remember, they are doing the best they can with their current understanding. Compassion doesn't mean tolerating toxic behavior, but it does mean releasing unnecessary suffering caused by unrealistic expectations. 4. Coping with uncertainty. Finding stability in the present moment. Uncertainty is one of the greatest challenges in life. We crave security, yet life constantly reminds us that nothing is guaranteed. The mind tends to create anxiety about the future. What if I lose my job? What if my health declines? What if things don't go as planned? Rather than resisting uncertainty, train yourself to be present. Ask, what is real at this very moment? Am I okay right now? Most of our suffering is caused by imagining problems that haven't even happened. Instead of fearing the unknown, practice grounding yourself in the now. Mindfulness techniques such as breathing exercises, meditation, and gratitude journaling can help anchor you in the present, reducing anxiety about an uncertain future. 5. Shift from problem-focused to solution-focused thinking. When we encounter difficulties, the instinctive reaction is to dwell on the problem, complaining, blaming, and feeling stuck. However, this only reinforces suffering. A more effective approach is to focus on solutions and actions. Instead of thinking, I don't have enough money, ask, what steps can I take to improve my financial situation? Instead of, this person is making my life miserable, ask, how can I communicate my boundaries or change my perspective? Not every problem has an immediate solution, but by focusing on what can be done, Rather than what shouldn't be happening, we regain a sense of control over our experience. For what cannot be changed, simply acknowledge, this is just one of the 83 problems, and I can choose how to respond to it. 6. Reframe failures as lessons, not defeats. Failure is often seen as something to be feared and avoided, but in reality, it is one of life's greatest teachers. The only true failure is resisting the lessons that life is trying to teach us. A failed business venture might teach you resilience and adaptability. A broken relationship might reveal deep-seated emotional patterns that need healing. A mistake at work might be the push needed to develop better skills. Rather than seeing failure as a sign of defeat, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Growth comes not from avoiding failure but from embracing its lessons with an open heart. 7. Practice gratitude amidst challenges. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools for letting go of the 84th problem. It shifts our focus from what's missing to what's present. No matter how difficult life feels, there is always something to be grateful for. If you are experiencing financial struggles, be grateful for the knowledge and skills you have. If you are dealing with relationship problems, appreciate the people in your life who do support you. If you are facing illness, cherish the moments of strength and the lessons that vulnerability brings. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring difficulties. It means balancing our perspective, recognizing that even in pain, there is something meaningful to appreciate. Final thought: letting go is a daily practice. Letting go of the 84th problem is not a one-time realization, it is a daily practice. Each time frustration, resistance, or anxiety arises, pause and remind yourself, this is just one of the 83 problems. I don't need to add the 84th. By consistently shifting our mindset, embracing challenges, and letting go of resistance, we cultivate inner peace, resilience, and wisdom, the very qualities that lead to true freedom. Conclusion: embrace life as it is. The story of the 84th problem teaches us that peace isn't about eliminating challenges, it's about changing how we perceive and respond to them. When we let go of the desire for a problem-free life, we open ourselves to acceptance, mindfulness, and inner peace. Life will always have its ups and downs, but embracing both the challenges and blessings allows us to live more fully in the present moment. Let go of the 84th problem, and you'll discover that peace has been waiting for you all along.